All right, so today I want to thank Andrea for joining us. We have Andrea Beaman who is joining us. She's a holistic health coach and natural food chef. And on top of doing a ton of things and being a very busy woman, in 2012 she was voted one of the top 100 most influential health and fitness experts. And she also has a award-nominated cooking show called Fed Up. So Andrea is really busy, so thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule and speaking to my followers and educating them about proper thyroid health and just nutrition overall.
Oh, good, good. It's my pleasure. I love talking about thyroid health. It's my favorite subject.
I'm sure that it is. So, Andrea, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and why you got involved and really have crusaded a passion towards educating the public on thyroid disease?
Well, my passion came from having a disease, having thyroid disease. When I was 28 years old, I was diagnosed with hyperthyroid and a goiter, but I had all the symptoms of hypothyroid. I was 25 pounds heavier, my hair was falling out, nails were splitting, depression, freezing all the time. Plus, I had this large goiter, sticking out. It looked like a swollen neck. And my doctor had recommended radioactive iodine to destroy my thyroid and then be on Synthroid for the rest of my life. And I said, Doc, it's awfully dramatic. I don't want to be on a drug for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I said, I know my diet is total crap. It's like a crap sandwich. Can I change my diet and my lifestyle? And the doctor said, your diet and your lifestyle have nothing to do with your thyroid. Now, this was about 20 years ago, and I think they've come a long way, although there's still some people that are stuck in that mindset. But I said, well, I'm not going to take the radiation because I saw what happened with my mom with radiation with her cancer, chemotherapy and radiation, and I was like, it just doesn't seem right to destroy the body. It didn't sit well with me. So I said no to the radiation, and I changed my diet and my lifestyle. And within 4 months, Marc, within 4 months, I dropped 18 pounds without even trying. My goiter started shrinking. My nails started getting stronger. My hair stopped falling out, and I was sleeping through the night and not urinating all night long. And I was like, wow, things are changing. I'm feeling good. My energy levels are getting better. So I went back to the doctor, and she took a blood test, and she said, yeah, your thyroid levels are definitely changing. She goes, but they're still not normal. You have to take this medication. And I said, I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and just give my body. So I changed 4 to 6 thyroid disease. So first I had hyperthyroid and goiter, and then I had hypothyroid, and then I had Hashimoto's, and then 18 months later, I had no more goiter at all. And within 2 years, my thyroid was completely normal. Now, that was 1999, so it's almost 20 years later. Still, no goiter, normal thyroid. I've never had to diet since. So that's why I'm an advocate for thyroid health, because I know that we can literally change the physiology of our body by changing what we're putting into it, what we're taking in, what we're putting in, what we're putting out. There's so much more than we can do than just destroy, cut, radiate, all that stuff.
That's fantastic. That is such an inspirational story. I'm sure for so many people to be able to hear that that you had the passion and determination, one, to stand up for yourself and kind of go against what your doctor was saying, because that's really hard to do in this day and age. And then at the same time be able to take control of your health and make the changes and see the results, that in that time frame you were able to completely reverse your thyroid disease. And you're here today to show that. I can't see, your neck looks completely fine to me, right? So that's awesome. That's really awesome. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of women really hopefully reach out to you and say how much of an inspiration you are to them.
Oh yeah, I hear from women all over the world. Like women that were told, "Oh, you have Hashimoto's. It's autoimmune. You can't heal that. It's incurable." Or you have Graves, or you have a nodule. Let's take your thyroid out. it's very dramatic. So I hear from the women that have changed their diet and their lifestyle, and they've healed their conditions. And I've heard from women and men as well, because it's not just a women's
Right.
disease. And I've heard from them that, the ones that have had thyroidectomies or they've had RAI, they're on the thyroid medications and they still don't feel good. They don't feel vibrant. They don't feel healthy. They can't get pregnant. There's so much stuff. So they never get to the root cause. If you just cut it out or you just cover up the symptom, you don't get to the root cause.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm sure there are plenty of women who are going to be listening to this interview and this video who don't really understand what the thyroid does and how it works. Can you give a short synopsis of what the basic thyroid functions are and how it works?
Yes, totally. The thyroid it's regulating your metabolism. But beyond that, it's also regulating, believe it or not, sugar. It's telling your cells, okay, listen, it's time to move. It's time to get up and go. It's literally telling your cells, let's go, let's move, let's get this body going, let's heat up. Let's cool down. The thyroid is the thermostat. It's the regulator. It's responsible for metabolism. It's also responsible for sleep as well. So, the thyroid is doing a lot. And it's regulating your cycles as a woman, right? It's regulating the menstrual cycles because there's a connection between your entire endocrine system. Like in Western medicine, they look at one piece of the system, right? Or maybe two. But if one part of the system is out of balance, the whole system is going to be out of balance. So if the thyroid's out of balance, menstrual cycles are going to be out of balance, right? If the hypothalamus isn't talking to the pituitary, is not talking to the gonads, right? You're not going to have any sex drive. So if you don't have any energy, by the way, which is what thyroid does, it's like your energy regulator. It's let's go, get up, wake up, it's time to go. If if your cells aren't getting what they need, your thyroid's going to be asleep. It's going to be like, I got to go to bed. I'm exhausted inside this person's body, right? They're not feeding me properly,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not giving me what I need. I'm so cold. I hear from people all the time, I'm so cold. They say like, oh, my thyroid levels are normal, but I'm freezing. Well, that tells me that the system is still out of balance, even though the blood is saying something completely different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a nice synopsis. I hear patients all the time who say that exact thing. So, they put me on medication and my labs look fine, but I don't feel well. So does that mean that your thyroid's functioning fine? Well, my doctor tells me it's functioning fine. So if we rely on lab work all the time, then we would have a lot of healthy people around who feel like crap, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
So you kind of started alluding to and touched on it a bit in that description. How does the thyroid, or more specifically, what other systems in the body can the thyroid affect for those people out there?
Well, it affects more than just the thyroid. It affects more than just metabolism. Like it's thought of as the metabolism. This is the queen of metabolism inside the body. It's going to tell you, speed up metabolism, slow metabolism, slow the processes down, speed up the processes, release this hormone, release. It's going to be doing a lot of talking, right? Your thyroid, and look where it's located. It's going to be doing a lot of communication to the rest of the body. But it's also regulating sugar. And not a lot of people know this. And that's because all of your cells require glucose.
Mm-hmm.
So if your body needs more energy, it's going to say, hey, we got to get some glucose going here. We got to get some sugar going. So a lot of times you'll find a pre-diabetic condition in association with a thyroid problem, right? Or blood sugar levels will be off in connection with a thyroid problem. That's because the thyroid is trying to get sugar. Let's go. We need some sugar. We got to get these cells moving. But the cells may not be receptive to it, right? So now the whole system is not communicating properly to each other, right? This system's not talking to that system. It's like it's disharmony inside. And, with like sex drive, for example, the thyroid is responsible for your ability to get up and go. And if you don't have the energy to get up and go, who's going to want to have sex? right? You're going to want to be asleep in the bed and not doing anything, just sleeping in the bed. And, we look at the thyroid, but it's also connected to the adrenals, right? So if we're wearing out our adrenals, like, we got to go, I got to do this, I got to get the kids, I got to take care of this, I got to do that, right? They're doing 1,000 things at once, right? Women are known as multitaskers. They're doing 1,000 things at once. They're going to be exhausting their reserves. And when they exhaust their reserves, the adrenals are going to send a note up to the thyroid and say, hey, listen, I want you to slow this human being down. Right? Because they're exhausting themselves. Slow them down, otherwise they're going to expire. So the body, when it slows down, it's slowing down for a reason. Either the body's not getting the nutrition that it needs, it's not getting the rest that it needs, it's not getting the rejuvenation that it needs, it's not getting things, or it's overworking, right? Or it's doing too much. So the thyroid is a wonderful indicator that something is out of balance in the human body.
Great, that's excellent. And so one thing that I find clinically as well, and you also mentioned it just now, is that it's not always the thyroid affecting other systems, it's that those other systems also affect the thyroid, like you mentioned.
Yes.
So if the adrenals aren't functioning properly, or we're overstressed and running rampant and trying to multitask like crazy, that it's also going to have an effect on the thyroid itself. So great, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, we're all connected.
It's hard to think of us as not being all connected, right? But we do sometimes. So I know that we hear a lot of different verbiage or terminology used with thyroid diseases. Can you explain a little bit of the differences and the most common thyroid diseases that someone might experience?
Yeah, totally. Probably the most common thyroid disease right now is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And Hashimoto's thyroiditis it's an autoimmune condition. Hashimoto's and Graves are
Hmm.
both autoimmune conditions. And Hashimoto's generally leads to hypothyroid, and Graves generally leads to hyperthyroid. But you could have either without the other. Meaning you could have Hashimoto's that doesn't lead to hypo, or it could lead to hyper. There's so many things going on. So like when you think about Hashimoto's and Graves, these are autoimmune conditions. So that you have to look at the gut. You don't actually look at the thyroid. The thyroid just happens to be the end result of what's happening. Like it's being damaged. But what's happening is you're not processing iodine properly, either too much or too little. Um, so you literally have to go into the digestive system to heal that condition. Don't not looking at the thyroid itself. Right? We have to go deeper into the system. And then you have hypothyroid. And hypothyroid means that your body's not producing enough thyroid hormone for whatever reason. The thyroid is not getting the messages that it needs to produce, or it's not getting the information that it needs to produce, more thyroid hormone. So the body slows down, right? All the processes slow down. And then you have hyperthyroid. And this is where the thyroid is on overdrive. It's hyper, literally. And it's working and working and working and working. It doesn't have a slowdown button, right? There's so much thyroid hormone is being produced, and there's nothing stopping it, right? The adrenals aren't coming to a halt, right? They're still going. The thyroid's still going, and the person's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. So a lot of times you'll see with Graves and with hyperthyroid, you'll also see the bulging eyes, right? The thyroid eye disease. I forgot the name of the eye disease right now, but it's part of Graves, but it's specifically the bulging eyes. And that's generally, like, you'll see them, they're bulging straight out. And generally, that's an internal stress. It's because the body's on high. It's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. So, like, if you look at the old cartoons with like Bugs Bunny and Donald Duck, right? If they were in like a stress mode, the eyes would pop open like this. So, whenever you see that condition, know that that person, whether they have hyperthyroid or Graves, that person has a tremendous amount of internal stress going on. The body's going and going and going and going and going, and it can't stop. So those are the most basic, the most common thyroid conditions. But you also have nodules, which are growths on the thyroid. Goiter is also very common, and that's an enlarged or an inflamed thyroid. And then you have thyroid cancer, and there's more and more thyroid cancer that's coming. It's running rampant right now, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and this is one of them, right?
Right.
This is they say it's benign, but please don't believe that. This is always emitting low levels of non-ionizing radiation,
Hmm.
always. unless you have it on off, right? Unless it's on off. So the thyroid is affected by, guess what? Radiation. That's why
Sure.
they give you radioactive iodine to destroy the thyroid when they want to stop the functioning of the thyroid, because the thyroid is going to uptake the radiation that is attached to the iodine molecules, right? So
Mhm.
it's gonna stop this from functioning. So even now, I'm sitting in front of this computer, and this computer is also emitting low levels of non-ionizing radiation constantly. So one of the things that's going on in our world today is that our need for iodine is increased because we're surrounded by so much radiation everywhere. Wi-Fi, the routers, the phones that we're putting right up to our neck. Oh my gosh, don't do this. Like, I would highly suggest you see one of these annoying little things,
Yeah.
they always get tangled, always, and it's a pain in the butt. But I would suggest that you never put this thing up to your face. You just really, hold it as far away as you can, and use one of these annoying little things. Your health is worth it.
And I would elaborate on that. I agree. The same thing is true with those Bluetooth
Oh,
headsets. Yeah.
yes, yeah, that's
Yeah.
concentrating
Yeah.
the energy right there. Oh my gosh, those are scary to me.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous with all the new the all watch technology that's coming out. You can
Yes.
have your whatever I watch and so forth. I'm a little concerned about what implications that's going to have as well. So
Yeah. Well, you as an acupuncturist, I mean, we have the meridians, they're running down through the hands, through the arms, through the
yep.
legs. What is that going to do to the heart, to the lungs, to the large intestine, right? To the small. What's gonna happen? Because it's gonna upset the frequencies. It's frightening. Like it's exciting that we have all this technology, but it's frightening on another hand, on another level, on the physiological level of the energetic body.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm concerned about everyone's all about this new craze and I'm like, I don't want one. I don't want one at all. So you mentioned something interesting because as a practitioner, I hear this sort of thing quite a bit. Um, you talked about iodine and you talked about how important it is and we need more of it because of all of the electromagnetic fields and waves and so forth. Where do you fall on that spectrum of, when should someone with a thyroid disease look at supplementing with iodine and when might it not be okay?
Well, actually, I don't recommend supplementing with iodine because it's an isolated nutrient, so it'll
Hmm.
cause an imbalance. Sometimes it'll cause hypertension, heart disease, right? It'll cause constriction, too much constriction in the body if you're just having iodine. So what I suggest is the traditional forms of iodine. You get them in sea vegetables, in salts, in eggs, like in food. You get there's so many like mineral-rich plants that contain iodine. Like even nettles. Like the old-fashioned nettles
Yeah.
contains iodine right from the soil. So there's many ways to get iodine that's not from supplement, but it comes with all of the other elements that make it easier to absorb. So, for example, I recommend seaweed, but I don't recommend the seaweed that's from Japan and China right now because of what happened 5 years ago.
Sure.
It's cleaning the waters over there, which is wonderful. But the seaweed, part of its job is to bind with the radiation, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that it helps the human body too. It binds with the radiation that's in us and helps excrete it as well as give us iodine. So I would source from clean waters. So Maine coast, there's all up on Maine. They're harvesting seaweeds that are from clean waters. There's another guy, Ryan Drum, and he harvests. I think it's down in I forgot the Virgin Islands or something like that. I
Huh.
don't know, but it's from cleaner waters that are not so contaminated. And then in about 10 years, we could start sourcing from Japan and China again. Like look at what happened with Chernobyl,
Yeah, it took so long.
right? Yeah, it took so long because it was in the soil. It was in the soil, and it was in the all the entire environment. 30 years later, they still were having high levels of thyroid disease and thyroid cancer. 30 years after Chernobyl.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
crazy.
long time.
Yes, yes. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful where we're sourcing, and unfortunately, we live in a polluted environment. So unless you're like in right, Antarctica,
Yeah.
you'd have to deal with something.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to hear you say that about the way you recommend patients and people consume their iodine. Because it's a common question that I get asked in practice, like, should I be on iodine? Should I not be on iodine? And then when I have, especially from my Hashimoto's and autoimmune patients, they're really concerned about it. And I said, look, let's not worry about supplementing with it. Why don't you just eat a good balanced diet and make sure that you're consuming those things? Like, I don't want you to avoid foods that have iodine in it because you need that. That's not the concern, right? So as long as you get balance and you're consuming the right foods, then I think it's appropriate.
Yeah,
Great.
I agree.
And we'll come to food in just a little bit. So you touched a little bit on autoimmunity. For me, and clinically, I see a lot of this in our practice. Can you explain to patients or to the viewers why the autoimmune portion of any autoimmune issue, but in this case with the thyroid, with regards to the thyroid, has such a important impact on the body, and what happens in the body that causes that autoimmunity?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like autoimmunity is where the body starts attacking, the immune system starts attacking the body in specific areas, right? So there's a rash of autoimmune happening, autoimmune conditions, from MS to rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, Graves, diabetes type 1 is autoimmune, like we have a lot of autoimmune conditions. So when there's an autoimmune condition, you have to look at the digestive system because over 70% of our immune system lives in the digestive system. So the first thing that has happened to human beings in the past, 50 or 60 years is we stopped breastfeeding. That's the first damaging thing that happened to the digestive system. So when the mother breastfeeds, she's giving the child all of this, immunity and all of this, these little, the intestines are permeable. They have like these little holes. And when the baby gets that first feeding of colostrum, there's I want to call them little elements, right? Little elements of bacteria inside the mother's breast milk that goes into the digestive system and actually seals those little holes, right? It seals them. It starts to like firm them up, put that good bacteria in there. And when the child doesn't get that on the first, when they come out and they're fed formula, which is what happened through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even to this day. I mean, now they're starting to get back to it. But we have like 30 or 40 years of kids, myself included, that didn't get the first feeding of the breast milk, so they'll always have an underlying weakness within the intestines. Like, it doesn't mean that they're going to die, right? It doesn't mean that they're doomed forever because they didn't get breastfed. But it does mean that they will have a sensitive digestive system that is more prone to autoimmune conditions as well as higher rates of disease across the board, right? So there's higher rates of cancer and you name it right across the board with kids that weren't breastfed. And that's because the initial bacteria never made it into the digestive system, the bacteria that helps us thrive. So a lot of times we can bypass that with a healthy diet and lifestyle by recolonizing our intestines with some good bacteria, fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, yogurts, kefirs, pickles, right? Real traditional old-fashioned bacteria-laden foods that can help our digestive system a lot, as well as really learning how to relax around food and chew, which is what we bite and swallow. We live in a society that's like, I don't have time for lunch. I don't have time for breakfast. We bite and swallow, but we're not designed that way. Like we have all of these teeth and these enzymes that are excreted into the mouth to help break down our food into chyme, right? It goes into the stomach, and it has to be in these small particles in order for us to be able to absorb it. And then when that doesn't happen, if we're bypassing this, first we have our digestive system, which was compromised from the get-go, and then we don't chew, and then we eat under stress, of course your body's going to attack itself. It's going to be like, it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know how to process the food that you're putting in. It doesn't know how to process a lot of things. So it's going to be in a state of inflammation constantly or chronically. And this is going to lead to more autoimmune conditions. like there's a lot we could do. Like I said, we're not doomed. We're just maybe a little less vibrant or a little less strong as our ancestors were, right? We have these weaknesses that are coming, and you can see it. I'm sure you see it in younger and younger generations. We see
Absolutely.
more and more illness coming. It's because we're getting weaker as a species.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You gave a great example. Just I think it was last week or the week before, I was talking to a patient, and I was stressing how important their digestive system was, and she said, "But I'm coming to." She reminded me, supposedly, that she was coming to me for fertility and reproductive health. I said, "Oh no, I'm well aware, but that's one of the more important systems that we need to address your fertility and reproductive system." So, yeah, I deal with it quite a bit, and my history, growing up, is that I was born in the '70s, so I have digestive issues that I've dealt with my whole life, and so I'm really sensitive to it and attuned to it. So I have not only affinity for treating digestive issues, but also fertility. So it's nice when I get to blend those together, which is quite often actually.
Yes, it is.
So as we start talking about fertility and the thyroid, can you tell everyone what the relationship is between the thyroid and reproductive function and why it's so important?
Well, remember I said earlier that if the body's not getting what it needs nutritionally, it's not getting rest, it's not getting the deep nutrients that it needs, then a baby will not come into that empty environment. So this is whenever a woman gets pregnant, the baby is going to be utilizing that host. This is the host body. It's going to be utilizing the nutrition that's in the host as well as the deep nutrition that comes from the bones, right? So we're talking deep nutrition. When you're building a body inside your body, and the body is made out of bones, it's going to be a skeleton, it's going to be a nervous system, it's going to be, organs, it's going to be everything. It's going to need some real deep nutrition, and that comes from the bones. And I know you know this in Chinese medicine, right? In TCM, that essence, that deep part of what makes us vibrant is living in our bones. It's our kidneys,
Hmm.
right? It's related to our kidneys, our essence. And if there is a weakness inside the body, the baby won't naturally go there. It won't feel like, first of all, it needs a warm place. And a lot of times with thyroid, when the metabolism is not functioning properly and the body's cold, a baby won't come into a cold environment, right? It needs warmth. Like think about warm things are alive and dead things are cold,
Right.
right? So that baby needs that warm environment. So if the thyroid is slow and if it's not functioning properly and the body is cold, a baby's not going to come. Also, because if the thyroid is not functioning properly, the menstrual cycle is not going to be regular.
Right.
Right? So you could have a scanty cycle. You could have a cycle that's too quick or too long. There's so much, because the metabolism, again, the thyroid is telling when to, let's go, we need energy, or I don't have enough energy, right? So there's a total connection between fertility and thyroid health. And, like I love, first of all, that you said that you go into the digestive system with your clients. That is so smart. That is so smart, because we can't nourish ourselves in a very deep way, all the way down to the kidney essence, to the bones. And by the way, the bones are part of the endocrine system. They just figured this out about 12 years ago. Right? They're like, oh yeah, the endocrine system and the bones are totally connected. So if you don't have that deep nutrition, that deep essence inside that is fully nourished and supported, a baby's not going to come. It really needs a good environment, a good, warm, nourishing, and safe, sacred environment. And if this host body is weak, exhausted, used up, and cold, there's not going to be a baby.
Absolutely. It's funny. I have a lot of the patients that I see who come to me from their OBGYNs will say, well, but my gynecologist told me that my thyroid and fertility have nothing to do with one another. And I start laughing. I'm like, okay, let's back up a little bit. So during pregnancy, naturally, one of the one of the things that I see happen, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is that the thyroid goes a little imbalanced during pregnancy. Sometimes I find that that doesn't go back to normal postpartum. Can you just mention why that happens? Because I see this quite a bit for secondary infertility.
Yes, and it's a great question, because when you get pregnant, the thyroid, remember I was talking about the deep nutrition in the
Hmm.
body? When the baby takes everything, the baby's like a parasite, right?
Yes.
Cute little parasite. And it takes all of the host's deep nutrition, minerals, essential fatty acids, cholesterol, right? All the stuff that we need. So they used to call it in the 70s, they used to call it postpartum depression.
Hmm.
Right? You'd have a baby, and you'd be like, oh, I'm so tired, right? I can't do anything, and you need to sleep for like 3 weeks. And back in the 70s, you could actually afford to do that. 70s and 80s, you could take 3 weeks off. Now you can't. You have to
Right.
have that baby. You get right back to the office, right?
Yep.
So what happens is the baby takes all of this deep nutrition, and the adrenals and the kidneys become exhausted. Right, so they become exhausted. The thyroid won't naturally speed up. It'll naturally slow down, because again, it's trying to reserve and save the human host.
Hmm.
So one of the things that used to happen when women would have babies is that they were given specific nutrients after the baby was born, right? And even during pregnancy, they were given stuff like bone stocks, real deep nutrition, real hearty, nutrient-dense foods. They were given, like if you go to an OBGYN and they say, oh, you're pregnant, you have to take this multivitamin that also contains iron.
Hmm.
Right? They would have these iron-rich supplements, and then they would become constipated because you can't have the
Right.
iron by itself like that. But indigenous people would give the pregnant women liver, right? They would always give them liver, like sauteed liver, pate,
Yeah.
something like that. And that's rich in B12, folic acid, all the stuff that's in the multivitamin that they give you.
Hmm.
So we don't use that stuff nowadays. We look at bone stocks and organ meats as that's the stuff we throw away. But that's actually where the deep nutrition comes from. The fats, the butter from the cows that are out grazing in the pastures. I'm not talking about animal products from factory farmed animals. I would never put that inside my body or inside a pregnant woman's body, because the amount of stress that's going to come with that.
Right.
You don't want that kind of stress when you're pregnant. But you do need that deep nutrition, and we're not getting that. We're getting fast food, food that is completely denatured, lacking minerals, lacking fat, lacking so much stuff, so that the host is exhausted. And that's why after the baby, they'll have this deep depression, or they'll go into a hypothyroid state. They won't be able to get their energy back. They won't be able to conceive another child, because they've already used up all their deep nutrition.
That's a great explanation, which kind of puts us on the topic of food, right? Which is your specialty, your baby here. So tell us, and I know that you probably cover in your upcoming book and in the upcoming program that you're releasing. But are there some basics when it comes to eating and food and nutrition with regards to the thyroid?
Oh yeah. Like you want to have your thyroid functioning well before you get pregnant.
Absolutely.
So I would suggest you, and when they say eat for two, remember they said eat for two? I don't believe in eating for two. Eat for one, but eat the most nutrient-dense foods. So eat traditional foods. Have some sauteed chicken livers. Have some pate. Have some bone stocks. Build the blood. It's time to build the blood, because the blood is going to be feeding the baby. So, you know what? If you're craving the hamburger, make sure it's great quality grass-fed meat. Put some sauteed shiitake mushrooms or maitake, right? Make it delicious, onions, pickles. Make it really fantastic, and eat it and enjoy it, and let your body absorb that nutrition on a deep level. But also, don't neglect vegetables. Don't think that I'm saying, just eat, fats and meats and all that stuff. No, we need a wide variety of foods. Herbs, vegetables, fruits. We need a lot of stuff. We just need better quality food than what we're getting. Like we've been getting, probably for the past 50 years, the worst crap
Yep.
ever in the history of human beings. It's just crap.
It's terrible. It's
Oh,
terrible.
yes.
Do you have a lot of good
Yeah, and
resources in New York? Do you have a lot of good
Do we have a
resources in
lot
New
of
York?
what?
Good resources for food and farmers
Yeah.
markets and so forth?
Yeah, like in New York City, we have a ton of farmers markets, and you'd never know it because it's a gigantic city. But also, like, you could go to eatwild.com, you could go to localharvest.org. And if you go to local harvest, you could put in your zip code, and it'll tell you where the farmers markets are, the CSA, community supported agriculture, where you could get grass fed meats and naturally raised animals. There's the beautiful thing about the web is that we have access to anything.
Isn't it
No
great?
matter where you are.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that I mean, we're kind of spoiled in California because we have access to really great produce and great farmers markets and so forth. But I know just from speaking to people all over the country that that's becoming more of a staple in many cities.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Those are great resources for everyone to look up and follow and find the good places in their neighborhood. You touched on fats just a tad. It was kind of like just you mentioned the word and then kept going. So I'm going to come
Yes.
back to it because it's something that I talk about a lot with patients, and I'm getting a little less of these crazy looks when I start talking about it now, but I still get the crazy looks. So talk to everybody about the benefits of healthy fats and really what implications it has on the body because it's something that I recommend all the time, but it's good for at least for my viewers to hear it from somebody else.
Yeah, like we've eschewed fats for probably since the 60s, right? The 50s and the 60s. We're like, don't eat the fat, don't eat the egg yolk, don't eat the butter, don't eat this, don't eat that. Here, have all these vegetable oils. And we've doused ourselves with tons of vegetable oils. And we've taken out saturated fats, and we actually need those saturated fats. We don't need them in huge quantities, but we need them. And we have fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, K, B12. These are fat soluble, and we can't actually absorb them unless we have fat. And this is one of the reasons why thyroid disease and osteoporosis are more prevalent in women than in men. Because generally women will say, I'll have the dressing on the side or no gravy, I'll have mine dry. And the man will say, no, I'll have a steak with double butter,
Right.
extra gravy on top of that. Because they traditionally weren't afraid of fat, where women feared fat. So we feared fat, and because we feared fat, we couldn't absorb A, D, E, and K, and B12, and our bones suffered, and our thyroid suffered, and our whole system started to suffer. Like we started to get really fat, right?
Yep.
Not even, right? Because we're not getting what we need, so we'll crave sugar, because sugar turns to fat. So it's when women tell me that they have sugar cravings, I know that there's a couple things missing. One is good quality fat. That's got to be missing. If they're craving so much sugar, they're missing good quality fat because sugar turns to fat. And the second thing, if they're craving sugar, that I think that they're missing is love. Right? Because sugar is sweet. It's sweet. And when we want to feel like treated or loved or, like special, right? We'll reach out for something sweet. And if you look at even our Valentine's Day, right? This is the holiday of love. What do we give? Chocolate and sweets.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of times if there's this craving for sugar and sweets, it could be that there is a sweetness that's missing. And it could be love, it could be relationship, it could be something that's missing. So we got to look to the food, we got to look to this, to the emotional, we got to look to a lot of stuff.
That's really nice. And I chuckled so hard because I knew a chef many years ago, and he always says, I cook with love. I'm like, that's great. I imagine a lot of chefs cook with love. He goes, no, 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 no. He's like, butter for me is love. So if I say I'm cooking with love, it means I'm cooking with butter. So when you said that, that's why I laughed, because every time I take a scoop of butter or ghee and put it into my food, I usually think of him and his statement of like, I'm cooking with love. So it was great. It was great. Yeah.
It's true. Like you're cooking with love and you're also absorbing on a deeper level, right?
Yeah.
You're absorbing.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, the people with digestive issues and your own problem with it. Saturated fats are one of the best things for the digestive system.
Mm-hmm.
The best. It's soothing. It helps to curb the inflammation. It's wonderful. Really great stuff. And it tastes delicious.
It does. It does. Absolutely. And I tell patients the same thing. If they're craving sugar, they're lacking in fats, and I also see that they're also usually lacking in protein, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
those two things. Yeah.
That's correct.
Great. Well, these little bits of information has been I love the conversation. I hope our viewers really enjoyed the information and found a lot of value in it. I know that you've got an upcoming book coming out at the end of April. Can you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called Healthy Happy Thyroid, and it teaches the viewer what their thyroid is, what it does in the body, and then how to support it in the best ways. And it also talks about adrenal health and stress and all the things in the environment that we're exposed to and how to limit your exposure and really take care of yourself. And then, of course, it goes into the emotional connection to the thyroid, the ability to speak your voice, the ability to speak with grace and truth. Right, this is our little truth box.
Mm-hmm.
So it covers all of the levels of healing, from the physical to the emotional to the spiritual to the energetic. It's a nice book. I'm going to be really happy with this one. I mean, I'm happy with all the books, but this is a good one.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I imagine everyone can get it either on your website or on Amazon.
Yeah, it'll be there at the end of April on
Okay.
both places. Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It'll be everywhere.
Okay, good. And then April 14th, you're launching your new program. I think if I remember correctly, it's about a 4-month program. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a 4-month program, and it's 11 modules plus live coaching calls, and each module covers exactly what you need to understand about food, diet, lifestyle. Again, similar to the book contents, except it's interactive. Right? You learn at a pace with a whole group of other people. And it's a 4-month program, and it's a lot of fun. Even though you may be suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suffering succotash. Oh, I'm so tired. Or I can't get this thing, or my hair's falling out. Usually within the first 2 months, the hair stops falling out, right? Because I really teach them about the foods that are going to nourish them on a deep level, and then we go deeper into the body and deeper into the endocrine system. And our pineal gland, right? Our beautiful little pineal gland, and how it affects our entire endocrine system. So that's a fun program too. We've already been launching it for 2 years, and I've had some wonderful success stories with the students in that program. So I let them do the talking.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
That's great. And then they do get some one-on-one time with you during that?
Yep. Oh yeah, we have
Awesome.
live group coaching calls. And then they bring any questions that they have, about their own condition, their mom's condition. I've had people sign up whose moms and sisters have had thyroid disease, and they come and learn the information. Also practitioners, like nurses and other health practitioners sign up because they want some information.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so we'll put a link at the bottom of this video, or include it with this video, for your website and for the upcoming program, the 4-month program. So anyone who wants it, who's watching right now, just look at the link, click on it, and they'll take you straight to it, and you can work with Andrea directly. That would be great. And your website for everyone?
Yeah. It's www.andreabeaman.com.
Perfect.
It's AndreaBeaman.com.
Great. Well, thanks, Andrea, so much for sharing your knowledge and information. I had a ton of fun, and we'll connect some other time.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me, Marc.
Yeah, my pleasure. From grass-fed animals as much as possible. If you suffer from endometriosis or fibroids or even PCOS, you should avoid dairy products altogether because they naturally contain estrogen, which stimulates their growth. I know buying organic can be pricey sometimes. If there's a must rule when it comes to buying organic and to trying to get pregnant, it should be this: buy organic protein and meats. This means grass-fed red meat, free-range chicken, and wild fish. If you're going to invest in your conventionally grown cattle and chicken contain hormones, antibiotics, and other contaminants that contribute to excess estrogen, hormone imbalance, and